Hello everyone, welcome back to John Panther Gaming. Today we're going to be doing a ranking of characters in the Telltale The Walking Dead Season 1 only. I finished this game about 5-6 months ago. Replayed through all of it, not just Season 1 but all of it again. Kind of thinking about this tiered list, kind of characters and my thoughts. With it, kind of a preface is this isn't going to be my favorite characters. It's just going to be characters that I think were really well done in the story, really well written, things of that sort. So I've kind of ordered it in order of when we meet these characters within the season itself. So starting out, Lee, I think really an antithesis for the whole series. I mean, he's got to be an S tier in my opinion. Lee is easily a top three character. I think a lot of people would even make an argument for number one. He's not my number one, but easily a top three character. Very well written. The starting point of where, again, in the cop car, going to prison, after murdering, the senator that was sleeping with his wife, and everything with it. It's just a super well written character, and it really, I think, embodies a lot of people's love for this game series. And so again, S tier. I think it's really easy as far as for the story. I can't remember the officer's name, but the officer, I think C. He has some funny lines in the beginning, as far as just lines, but I mean he dies off pretty quickly in the story. Doesn't really do a whole lot for you besides the very beginning. Um, but yeah, the officer I think goes in C. Just a very average character I would find. Clementine, another one of people's top three. I think in season one, I think she's an S, but she's kind of in between the two to me. Well written, obviously, is one of those characters that, going into season two, after, the very ending of season one, that season two, she is the main character. She is your main playable character that you're playing. But again, in season one, again, still that little girl, relies on others to save her, take care of her, stuff like that. I have her at S, but I really think you could make an argument for A as far as just, in the season itself, you don't see a lot. Now, season two is a whole nother story. But I think in this season, I think she's S, but if you were to make an argument for her to be A, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you. So going on, Chet. Good old Chet. Chet is one that if you decide to leave in the daylight, you meet Chet and Sean. But if you decide to go at night, you meet Sean and the other, like the state trooper guy, the other officer. I want to say Chet dies, if I remember right. So it kind of depends on your choices there. C, I mean, he's not around for very long. Whether either decision, he's not around for very long. Um, Again, solid character, kind of just kicks the story along, but nothing too poorly written about it. Sean, I think is it's gonna be a lot of these C's. I think he's a C. I think well written. I think the back and forth between him and his dad, as far as Sean having been in Atlanta and seen kind of how it all goes down the very beginning, and his dad kind of being unprepared, is that probably the right word? Almost nonchalant. Be like, well, it is what it is. Out here, we don't have those troubles. That's a problem, and I think Sean is a good driver of the story. But I think the Greens, in the comics, in the show, really, really big. This, I think, I want to think Telltale brought them, same with like Glenn, into the story just to like get people to connect them, and to make those connections. But they don't do a whole lot, especially the Greens. They don't do a whole lot for the story for you. But again, your first kind of big decision happens around Sean and around Duck, as far as who to help out first in that big decision in the game. And so I would say they're both C's. But again, there's going to be a lot of these very mid characters in the first episode, and in the last episode. But yeah, like I said, let's keep going. Kenny, S tier. I think he is an excellent, excellent, excellent character. In this season, again, written as the season keeps going, where people dying, and stuff like that. He just is excellent. Just an excellent, excellent character. And, he is actually, for me, my favorite character in the entire series for Telltale Games. For me, in my favorite character, it's Kenny and then Clementine. But Kenny is my favorite character. I think he's so well written. Just again, you can see that progression, especially seasons, 1 and 2, where you really see him. Unfortunately, with New Frontiers, depending on your choice at the end of season 2, you know, not happy with how he was used there. But again, in season 1 and 2, I mean, just my favorite character in the whole series. But in season 1, I mean, it's great. With the decisions and stuff like that, you can see how it changes, and again, I think that the duality between him and Lily and kind of their leadership styles is really a good foil for each other throughout the first half of the first season. Really, you can see that foil there. Really enjoyed his character, and again, my favorite character in the whole thing. But I think as far as just objectively, is one of the best in this season. Duck, I'm gonna put him at D. I think Duck, besides that part where he kind of helps you out being the quote unquote detective in episode 3, Duck is to me underutilized. I don't think they utilize him very much. And I think that's for both kids necessarily as far as, I mean, but Clementine's used obviously a lot more. Um, but again, that's for me, it's just besides that, he's a D. He doesn't really have a lot of lines, as far as being integral to the story, besides, at that point in season 3, after the raid on the motel and he gets bit, you see a little bit more of his importance to the story at that point. But again, I feel like a little bit underutilized. I wish they would have used him more. As a character, I think that would have been great. Katja, a B for me. I think, especially in episode 2, with the St. John's, I think she's way more integral at that point in that part of the story. Um, Again, I I wish they would have utilized her and Duck a little bit more to the story. That's something I would have liked. But again, you only have a certain amount of time, so like her character, it's well written. I like that there's kind of especially you see it in episode 3 in the very beginning. There is a clash, between her and Kenny. You can see that clash of styles when they're again talking about people having guns on them and different things, and then the questioning of you about what happened in the locker, with Larry. And so they used her a lot more, but I wish they would have used her and Duck a lot more to the story. Especially Duck, I think doesn't get used at all. Glenn, really well used. He's only in here for 1 episode, but for that 1 episode, he's very, very well used. I really enjoy him. I mean, again, the difference between the Greens and him as far as introducing them to the story is completely night and day. The Greens you don't see very much of, in episode 1, but Glenn you do. He's there, at the pharmacy, you're dealing with that. And then again, going to the motel, and going through that part of the story. I mean, again, he's used, his leaving of the group to go, I guess, save his friends, there in Atlanta makes sense. I mean, you don't want him to be around necessarily because you want to have your own characters. But again, well written, put in really well. It's a night and day difference between the two of them from the comics and show characters that are put in here. Night and day, in my opinion. But again, I think a solid A there. Doug. Doug is depends on your choices, kind of like Chet. Um, to a certain extent, Doug and Carly are the foils of each other. I think they're both A. To me personally, I think Doug might be a. It's hard. Um, I replayed both because the first time around I had Carly. My thought process was she has a gun. She could shoot someone, shoot the zombies with it. Way more important than just Doug, who could fix a remote. So I chose Carly the first go around. The second go around, chose Doug. And I see why this decision has come a lot more 50-50. For people, Doug, a lot more of a comedic relief, for Lee, and has some funny lines. Carly, as far as getting Lee to tell members of the group what he did, there's sort of, you get near the end of, or near the beginning of episode 3, like a love interest there. Again, immediately ripped out, by Telltale. I think they're both A to me. I think they're really good flows of each other as far as different storylines you can get out of it. I mean, the hard part with Telltale's is, and kind of think is the critique always is, it doesn't really matter in the end. Whether you pick one of the two of them, they're both going to die. Come episode 3, Lily's going to kill them both. And so I think that's hard. Personally, I should probably rank these actually by order of how much I like them. Let's go. As far as in this, I think me personally, I like Carly better than Doug. In the story, I just think she brings a little bit more. But again, I think to me I don't know. It's a toss-up. I think it really just depends on which one you enjoy playing with more. But again, I think both solid A's. Good drivers of the story. Larry, such an asshole. Larry is an absolute asshole. I think he's a good. I think he's a good antagonist within your own group. For those first 2 episodes of the story. I mean, just writing a character that you just can't stand. Every time he opens his mouth, you're just like, this dude sucks. Like, I hate this guy. So again, Larry, a really well written character. I think that decision in the locker, even though it does have some, points in the game where you see, it's different how you make that decision, can affect kind of what Lily does a little bit. Again, like I said, the problem with Telltale Games is the ending is always the ending. You're never going to change that. But I think Larry's a good antagonist for the group, within it. I mean, you always got the different antagonists, the St. John's, the Stranger, Ver- Vernon. You always got these antagonists, but I think within the group, great. I think he's really good. I'd say he's probably done better than Katya is as far as for the story. I think he's done a lot better. Lily, an A tier character. Again, well used. Um, I I like how when it's written, what happens in the locker. Again, Telltale Games never really changes the outcome, but you can see how she basically loses it. Come episode 3, she's lost it, even though she was right about the supplies getting stolen. How the whole Doug Carly thing goes down, where she shoots one or the other, depending on your choice. Um, Sucks. It sucks. That was the first moment where I was like, oh shoot, like damn, in this game. It was that moment when she shoots one of the two of them. And for me, it was Carly because that was my first go around. But really well written, in her. And I mean, this is a lot. This game is a lot of foils between different characters, and her and Kenny are really good foils for each other because you could see merit in both of their arguments. I think for Kenny, it's like, listen, we can't stay here. Macon's already been looted out. We need to keep moving. The name of the game is to move and survive. Whereas for Lily, it's like, hey, listen, we got a good thing here at the motel. We have defenses here. You know, just because there is a pasture out there, the grass isn't always greener, and so I think that foil between the two, forces you to take a side, and you could try to stay neutral playing as Lee, but in the end, you do need to take a side. Doesn't really matter whose side you take. Not really necessarily, but again, you do need to kind of take a side. You can't just stay neutral the whole time. So really enjoyed both of their characters. I like Kenny's more for the story, but Lily's very well written. Really important come later on in the series, but I really enjoyed Lily's character. All right, moving on. The St. John's come a little bit after these guys, so we'll do them first. The teacher. I mean, uh, I know it's hard because D is for, like, in my mind, is the characters that they're there a while and they're not well used. And so I think the teacher and Travis, I think you can both use them in the C tier. Again, depending on what you do. Again, I don't think there's really anything to them as characters, really. I mean, besides kind of your very beginning where you have to choose either chop off his leg or not, and Travis dies. It is what it is. But Ben gets introduced. I have a hard time with Ben. I hate Ben. Ben sucks as far as just a member of your group. Ben is horrible. Um, but I think Ben is written in a way that makes sense. Um, as far as, again, if you know people, there is Bens of the world that if the end of the world happened, there's people like Ben that would completely screw it up and would get everyone killed. They exist out there, and so I think he's well written for that purpose in the B tier. Um, but again, as far as my favorite characters, I hate Ben. Ben sucks. Especially I think the moment where I was like, I hope this guy dies was when you're in Savannah and he's right there with Clementine and the zombies are all coming at him and he just fucking dips. Oh man. Oh man. I was like, give me an option to shoot him right now. He's useless. But again, if you know people, there's Bens in the world. Completely worthless for the group. But I will say, um, his character's branches as far as how his story finishes, later on in the season is cool. And so that's why I think B is a good tier because I think by the end of it, yeah, I think by the end of it, him and Kenny, their relationship's interesting by the end of it, and I'm not gonna, again, it's spoilers, but I'm not necessarily gonna share everything. But again, the different branches are interesting between the two of them. Me personally, he dies at Crawford. Yeah, he dies at Crawford. This is me being honest in the first go around. I So there's a moment where he's on the bell tower and he's getting hung, like grabbed by the walker and the bell. When he's screaming for help, if you don't do anything, he will fall to his death. And I figured out the second go around when I was playing with my run through with Doug. Um, that in that go around, if you go to save him, then you still have the choice to lift him up or not. I let him fall. I let the zombie take it for the bell tower, and I just didn't do anything. Kind of because in my mind I was like, this dude is gonna get someone else in this group killed. It's all his fault, and kind of revenge for Clementine. And after that, I'd have to play through again. I was like, man, that was kind of messed up with me. But again, there's Bens of the world out there. Really well written character for that aspect, but I think a good B tier. I think he's more important than both of these two, probably. Um, Not my favorite character, but a well written one nonetheless. Um, we could do Mark as well. That's a good one. First character you see with you. Um, Probably B. Probably the lowest of the Bs. You don't see him a whole lot. Um, but again, one of the more shock. I think that's probably the most shocking. That and one of their two deaths and conscious death is probably this areas of the season that are just like whoa. And his when you find him with no legs is nuts. My first time playing through that was nuts to me. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Um, that was crazy. Awesome story. Again, you don't see him a whole lot, so I can't really blame him. But when he's in there, he does well as far as that goes. But I think middle of the pack. If you would have had him like right here, the top of the C's, I wouldn't necessarily blame you. I definitely don't think he's up here in these type of characters, but I think this is a good little area between here and here. Be a good area for him. Andy St. John. My favorite of the St. Johns. Let me move her. Sorry, just rearranging this as far as people I like. Um, Best in the story. Andy is easily the best one of the St. John family. Again, he's kind of the driver of the story for you. Um, again, really well done. I love how he's written. You can see the dynamic between the three of them. And again, if you play through it once and you kind of know their past and what they are as far as being cannibals, you play through it again and you catch it, especially Danny, you catch the writing in it. But Andy is my favorite, I think, as far as, or not, well, he is my favorite out of them, but I also think he's the best written out of all of them. I think Danny is probably a B above, probably a B above Mark. Well written. Um, Again, you can catch it. The second time through, you're like, okay, I'm catching what they're putting out there as far as them being cannibals. Um, Mama St. John, I wish they would have done more with her. I really do. She's a C to me. I wish they would have done more. You don't really get a whole lot with her besides there at the very end, at the dinner table, and then with her getting killed by Walker Mark. I think I wish they would have done more. She's kind of like Duck in my mind, where I wish they would have done more with both of those characters. Um, but again, I think solid. Wish they would have done more. Omid, Omid, where would I put Omid? Very funny character. where where you get the option to push him off the bridge is really funny to me. Um, yeah, I think he's good. I think he does more for the story than the rest of these characters below him. I think he's a good, just above average character. As far as that goes. Um, Again, kind of a sad death and kind of a dumb death. I wish he would have died better come season two. But again, it it is what it is. I think it's important for the development of Clementine and Krista. But I think in this season, a good B, above average character. Krista, I think, is that lower tier of the A. Um, I think probably that lower tier of the A does a lot more. It's a lot more involved. Mostly because Omid's leg is fucked, in his own words. Does a lot more. Again, the very end takes care of Clementine, her and Omid, and so I really enjoy her character. I wish we had answers with what happens to her in the series. I hope we do get answers down the road. I would really enjoy that if we were to get some answers further down the road. But again, good character nonetheless. Molly is a great character for how little of the story she's in. Man, I think she's probably a high A for me. Again, well written, good backstory. Kind of the relationship between her and the Crawford community. Really well written. I really enjoy Molly's character, and is easily, I think, is one of the best written and one of my favorites from this season. Molly is a good, well written character in my mind. Oh, what was this chick's name? I just played through and I can't remember. But again, she helps Vernon get you into Crawford. A C. I think she's pretty bang average as far as characters go. I mean, she gets you in. I mean, how she dies is dumb. I don't like it how she dies. I think that could have been better done. I don't mind her dying in Crawford, but in my mind, the door like swings outward into the hallway, and that's how she dies. And they like break through the window to choke her. It's weird. I wish they would have killed her off better. Um, but again, I can't remember her name. Solid character as far as just being average. Vernon, I think probably right here. I mean, you see him a lot in the last two episodes of the season. Kind of an antagonist that you don't really recognize, until it happens when he steals the boat, like a complete jackass. But again, well written. I really liked him in this season. I didn't expect it when he stole the boat. I didn't expect that. Um, and I haven't played the 400 days, but I know he comes in to the 400 days. That's something I do need to play. I played, New Frontier season 2, season 4, yeah, the final season. I played all those, but I haven't played 400 days. And Michonne's story, I haven't played that either. Probably should. But again, Vernon, really liked his character. Was not expecting him to betray the group at the end. Hey, well written, I think. The Stranger. I'm gonna put him high A. Oh man, yeah, high A. I think these characters are probably, you know, probably in a group of their own. But The Stranger is really well done from the fact of connecting your choices throughout the game, and basically it acts as like a review of your choices. And the final thing where he's talking about, hey, you stole or didn't steal the car with my supplies, and because it got stolen is why my wife left with our daughter and why they're dead. And as far as, and then talks about, again, your different choices, whether or not you killed Danny with the pitchfork, whether or not you killed Andy by punching him to death. Um, as far as stuff like that goes. What else was it? There's another choice in there, but again, like he kind of he almost acts as like a counter because you have to make hard choices in this, and he almost acts as like a pushback to your conscience a little bit, and so a really well written, very much a deranged person, especially when he's talking to the bag with his wife's head. That's nuts. Very well written. I think he's easily the in the top, five of best characters in this season. Someone I thoroughly enjoyed, but again, this is my ranking. Not a lot of D's. This, I think, to me, I like season two the best. I've seen a lot of critiques of season two. I personally enjoy it the best, but season one's a close second. Um, I personally enjoy all the seasons, even the New Frontier. People don't necessarily love that, but I personally enjoy it. But again, I think that's the bottom. But to me, not a lot of D's. Duck's character, I just wish they would have done more, and that's really why he's a D. He's just not well done within the story, to me, and so I wish they would have done more. I think for these people that are barely in it, it's like, well, they're barely in it. Duck's in it for a while, and so they don't do a lot, but again, this is my ranking. Tell me what you think. I'm planning on doing one for every single season. Like I said, I haven't done 400 Days of Michonne, so I won't be doing it for that. But again, be on the lookout. I'm planning on probably uploading all of them at the same time. You'll probably just recording them back to back. But hey, tell me what you think. If you think I messed up on any one of them, let me know. I'm always open for a discussion. This is one of my favorite game series. Playing through it. I played it when I was super young. I played the first episode because it was free on the App Store. Um, but now I haven't played through it, 5, 6 months ago, and then replaying through it again. Man, it's just such a great series, and one of these days maybe I might play it and upload it. Play through the whole thing and upload it onto the channel. I think it'd be fun. Tell me what y'all think, but let me know. Like I said, thanks for watching John Panther Gaming, and hope to see you guys next time.